Alright, I have a hard time believing this, but I've finally had a video that has reached 100,000 views, and it's this one. And boy, I guess I have a lot to say about this particular video. It's pretty special for several reasons. The probably most controversial aspect about this video is its title, strangely enough. It's something I did not see coming at all. As you can see on the title screen, it's Wonder Woman Part 2, which is precisely what it is I titled it. That was for a couple of reasons. One was that this is the second part, and the first part of this review series, which was the pilot for the television series, was like the new original Wonder Woman 1975 review, which is pretty long. So I thought there'd be a fun contrast to have this be a really short title. And also, in between the first one and the second one, a year had passed, and I had a lot of people who subscribed to me ask me what was taking so long with Wonder Woman Part 2, why wasn't that up? So it seemed to me to be more suiting just to have a short Wonder Woman Part 2 title to sort of get that point across. Almost just, yeah, this is what you've been waiting for, here it is, short, simple, and to the point. And when I first posted it, you know, it was rather modest in terms of views, didn't get that much, a little less than I expected considering how many people had asked me about it. But then it started growing exponentially, and as a lot of people, a lot of disgruntled, unhappy people told me, that was because people were apparently mistaking it as not as a review, but as the second segment in the actual movie they were looking for. So I wouldn't be lying if I said a lot of views came from people who were looking for that movie, and so a lot of the dislikes on this video came from it as well, which is, like I said, it's a bit controversial. But, you know, I never change the titles of my videos, I just don't do that, so it is what it is, and I'm proud of this review for what it is, and has gotten a lot more exposure than it otherwise would have. The likes still outnumber the dislikes by a little bit, so yeah, I'm happy about that. Like the pilot, this movie has an all-star cast, and it's Alfred. And it's funny that it took me so long to get around to doing this particular video. First of all, before I even started doing video reviews at all, I'd had this on my short list, I guess, of things I wanted to do. And so it's funny it took me about a year and a half to actually get around to doing it at all. But the reason for that, and the reason it was a year between my two Wonder Woman videos, was, well, you know, I was thinking of doing this one, and then I happened to find the first season of Wonder Woman, the television series, at FYE of all places for $10. So I scooped it up and like, it'd be great to do this as a series and do the television series first and then the movie. But around the time I did the television series review, I started having really bad computer problems. I couldn't get a video to come out properly. The audio would always come out popping and skipping. It just didn't sound really good, and I never really only barely got one for the first part that I thought was suitable, and after that I just didn't want to risk trying to do videos like that anymore, so I didn't do any videos for the next couple of months, and the ones I did after that were usually just with still images. In fact, I tried one more time with 1776, and there's still just one part of this little montage with the music for a second, and just came out terribly, and so I just didn't want to do this for a while, because I know I wanted to do Wonder Woman Part 2 in the same sort of style I've been doing with that one. Didn't want it to be inconsistent. So finally I came up with the idea, because with the anniversary coming up, I really wanted to get this done. I did release this on the day, you know, to the day, a year later. Oh, and in regards to this is probably one of my more over-the-top performances, but that music, if you haven't seen my Wonder Falls review, that's sort of my running gag for what I do anytime a Firefly actor appears on something, is to play that Romeo and Juliet Nino Rota score, and, you know, be all over-the-top dreamy over it. I did it with Jewel State in that video, and Nathan Fillion, obviously, here. But anyway, I discovered that it would work better to give my poor, underpowered computer a break if I were to just write the file for the audio by itself, getting into a little bit of tech explanation here, and then let's just do the audio and video separately and then merge them together for a video, and that way it would be easier to get a cleaner recording, and for the most part that worked. The problem with this one was that I encoded the audio, then I encoded the video, and then put them together on a third pass. And when I did that, there was a bit of generational loss in the video footage, which makes this look a little bit unpolished compared to the rest of them. There's some detail lost. I eventually realized I would just have to do the audio by itself and then put it back with the original video, and wouldn't suffer that generational loss. But I didn't realize this at the time, so unfortunately this is as good as this is gonna look. I realized this for my Superman the movie, the ending video, that I could just do the audio by itself, and the video would sort of follow suit. So yeah, this was a important video for me because it was, in my mind, my triumphant return to my more classic style, where I was actually using video clips and have me on screen rather than just still images and me off camera. And that Price is Right losing sound effect with Steve right there was more trouble than I expected it to be. Another thing that my editing software does not like to do is slow things down properly. It used to, but now whenever I try to slow down a clip, it'll slow down the entire video file, which means I would get something totally different, a different part of the video than I intended to get. So I'd have to actually take that one clip, make that into its own video file, and then put that into it and slow it down. And like I said, just a whole lot of trouble. And there's my little running gag as to liking the spinning there. Also, the Wonder Woman shirt I was wearing there, and in the first video, it's something of a trend of mine to like to wear a t-shirt relating to my video content in my videos. I didn't have a Wonder Woman shirt, so a friend of mine and I ordered an iron-on from eBay and ironed that on to an undershirt that I had and used that for the first Wonder Woman video. When it became clear that I wasn't going to be able to do the second part anytime soon, I really wanted to make sure I was wearing the same shirt in the second part. So I just sort of packed that shirt away for a year, didn't wear it again, because I was so afraid that if I washed it, then it just would ruin the shirt. So that's exactly the same as it was in the first video. Hadn't washed it in a year, and still ended up wearing it, and I now wear it regularly, and I have washed it several times, and sure enough, it doesn't look as good anymore. But since then, my girlfriend's been kind enough to actually get me a real Wonder Woman shirt, so if I ever do any more Wonder Woman content, I have something a bit more sturdy I can wear, because I probably can't wear the old one anymore and have it show up and looking, be able to read it with the camera. John Bender from Futurama and Waka from Final Fantasy X DiMaggio. And when things get serious, is it time? Damn it. Right now I should probably mention the physical combat in this movie in comparison to the pilot. In the old TV series, I find it funny when to engage in hand-to-hand combat. Even though they're showing the violence, there's still a lot of those censoring flashes that, when upon the contact. They usually use those to edit out hits to the face, stuff like that. With Thanos defeated, the duo gets its next clue with a sign of Tartarus, the cult of Ares. I thought it was so cool how this movie did. A lot of these, I guess, newer DC movies have start bringing in a well-known cast. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge Firefly fan. So I love it that Nathan Fillion is in this. And I thought it was funny. I remember watching the commentary and saying they had a censored version of this where you couldn't see the blood go to the door and look kind of weird. And come to think of it, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to try to label this as clearly as possible, but I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happened with this video as the last one, and people came here thinking it was the actual commentary on the video, rather on the movie, rather than something that I'm doing. But we'll see how that comes out. Like I said, I'm going to try to label it as clearly as possible, but I wouldn't be surprised given what's happened with this last video so far. So. And prepares to wage war once again. Diana awakens in a hospital and is livid that Steve didn't stop Ares, saying that he would have behaved differently if she was a man. This is what I think was a really pivotal scene in the movie, but when I think about it, it's kind of funny. They seem to treat Steve as much more comic relief, except for in this scene, but he still ends up getting slapped across the face, and it seems like a funny double standard for a movie that has this message right in this scene about, men and women should be, working together kind of thing, that, she can slap him and it's comedy, but, if it had been reversed, and even though she's physically stronger than him, if he'd slapped her, that, I don't think it would have played for laughs as well. That's just kind of an interesting Interesting thought. That's That's what I always think about when I see that scene.
Has, of course, set up his army in Washington, D.C., at the Lincoln Memorial, no less.
They're messing with Lincoln. Nobody messes with Lincoln.
Diana confronts Ares and gets some timely help from a fleet of attacking Amazons. For some unexplained reason, Themyscira suddenly becomes visible to you.
This is something else that the people who watched this video have commented to me about. That has to do with the nuclear missile and how Steve shoots it down. I make a joke in a minute about how if a nuclear missile had exploded above Themyscira, it would have wiped out the whole place anyway. But apparently, I don't know that much about nuclear warheads because a lot of people have corrected me and said that it takes a really precise kind of detonation to get the nuclear bomb to properly explode, and so therefore Steve could have conceivably blown it up and would have made that kind of explosion. But I guess that's just me not knowing much about nuclear explosives. But I stand by my assertion that Steve would have had no way of knowing that missile was going to Themyscira in the first place. I stand by that one. I think there's no way to really argue that point. So I'm right about something. Just yeah, I'm right about that.
This was a nuclear warhead. I admit I'm not
Oh, come on. I have to end this talking right in front of this part so you get to hear it all over again. So I'm just going to talk during this entire part so you don't get to hear my terrible, embarrassing mistake. Okay, good, I made it past that.
Confronts Persephone, and while you think Persephone would have realized by now she needs to stay.
This is an interesting message because you almost could see it as Persephone. Oh, there's an audio skip right there when they did manage to get through. Of Persephone, maybe saying that a woman's role is to raise children and have that sort of family life. But I guess a more optimistic version of me would say that it's just the idea of having a choice rather than being forced to do one thing or being forced to do the other. This is the joke that nobody seems to pick up on. I wonder if it's just because of such a low quality audio clip that I used. But this is. I thought it was just so much like the scene from Forrest Gump that I had to put that audio in there.
A lifeless servant of Hades, and all is well with the world. Artemis even tries that reading crap out.
So yeah, the audio still didn't come out perfectly, but I think it turned out a lot better than it would have if I hadn't gone to the trouble of mixing the audio separately.
Diana sent back to America.
But that's the problems I have to go through because I have a crappy computer and editing software that I've always had a sort of frustrating relationship with. Well, that would have been a nice setup for a sequel. I wonder if that's ever going to happen. I mean, Wonder Woman hasn't been that much more successful lately, with that failed pilot and all. And I think the new look Wonder Woman that I showed off in the beginning of this video didn't work out very well, if I recall.
There are some plot holes, but
I've been keeping up with the comic books, so I really don't know. But I think I read somewhere that the new jacket and tights Wonder Woman was sort of that didn't last very long. I don't know.
Very strong feminist message. The problem with
and here's me trying to lay off the comedy for a little while and get a serious bit of analysis in here.
But to my surprise and
just to lend myself a little bit of serious reviewers' credibility.
He's also loyal and brave, and while the faults of men are shown in ample detail, the movie pulls no punches in regards to the flaws of women either, as exemplified in Etta Candy's flirtatious uselessness and in Persephone's final words of admonishment to Hippolyta. Both genders are presented as flawed, and the theme of the movie seems to be best expressed by Steve when he argues that what the world needs is more understanding and congregation between men and women, rather than isolation and distrust. So to sum up, both origin stories have their strengths.
This was it, my first video to reach 100,000 views, as
it's always a treat to have
thanks at least in part to all of you, my wonderful fans, who I greatly appreciate. Hopefully it's, I like to think it was much more your contributions than just random people who were angry that this was not an actual part of the movie. But even if it didn't have the 100,000 views, I'm still pretty proud of this one. So to all of you who enjoyed that, I'm really glad that you did. And I've gotten some comments recently and people have really found this as funny and really lifted their spirits, and that's good to know. I'm really proud of that. I remember I had the order of this differently. I've done the spinning and the reuse of the clip from this part and the reuse of the spinning clip before the credits. I just thought it played better as a sort of tag instead of a pre-credits thing. So. Also, I took the opportunity to do a little special edition of this one and clean up the effect right there. It was a little bit out of place when I did it originally for the first video. But actually, if you look at the episode, it was the same kind of thing. That actually wasn't quite in sync as well, but I wanted to be cleaner.